Hi, my name is Ryan Frizzell, and this is my final assignment video for C250 Errors of Justice with Professor Cole. My final assignment is on an exonerated man named Johnnie Lindsey. Now Johnnie he's from Texas. His situation, the alleged crime and his incarceration happened, and his exoneration happened in the state of Texas. In the summer of 1981, a 27-year-old white woman had been riding her bicycle near a lake in East Dallas, Texas. She was attacked by a shirtless African-American man and raped. Afterwards, she went to the police and submitted herself to a DNA rape kit test. Also, at that time, the police rounded up a group of men from the area that fit the profile, the description of the attacker, and presented them to the victim in a lineup. At that time, the victim did not select any of those people in the lineup as her attacker. That next year, police continued their investigation, and they put together a photo array of 6 different African-American men. 2 of the men in that photo array were shirtless, as was the man who had attacked the victim at that time. One of the men in the photo array was Johnnie, and he was one of the men that was shirtless. And the victim selected him when she saw the photo array. So the police arrested Johnnie, and they took him to court, they took him to trial. Johnnie was adamant at that time that he did not do it. He could not have been the one. And he did not want to submit to a plea deal or a plea bargain, so his case went to trial. At the trial, Johnnie provided a very strong alibi. He brought into the court to that trial as evidence his time card from work. Johnnie worked at a commercial laundromat at that time in 1981 during the attack. And on that day, during the attack, he was on the job at the commercial laundromat, and his time card proved it. Also, his boss from the laundromat testified in court during the trial that Johnnie could not have been the attacker because he was at work that day. And in fact, the boss even said to the court that he would have had to close the laundromat that day if Johnnie did not show up to work because he was in charge of operating their important pant press machine. But the jury did not buy that, and Johnnie was convicted of aggravated sexual assault in 1983. He was sentenced to life imprisonment and a $10,000 fine for a rape that he did not commit. Now, 2 years later, in 1985, Johnnie's conviction was overturned due to a technicality with Texas state law. One of the laws that had been used to charge Johnnie initially was not yet active at that time. It hadn't formally been made into Texas state law. So his conviction was actually overturned. But almost immediately, within a very short span of time, he was taken back for a retrial. And by the end of 1985, he was reconvicted of aggravated sexual assault. He was resentenced to life imprisonment, and his fine was changed to $5,000 instead of $10,000. Johnnie sat in prison for the next 16 years before any sort of opportunity could come along for him to make headway on his case. And in 2001, the state of Texas passed a law that allowed DNA testing on post-conviction cases. In other words, it allowed Johnnie to submit his DNA to be cross-referenced with the DNA from the rape kit that was taken on the day of the crime to see if that was his DNA. Because he was adamant that his DNA was not in that rape kit. Johnnie knew that the DNA from that rape kit was not his DNA. And now he finally had an opportunity to prove it. So Johnnie began to write letters to the court to allow his DNA to be tested against that DNA from the rape kit. He wrote a series of letters, 5 or 6 letters before in 2007, 6 years after the passage of that of that Texas state DNA law. One of his letters was finally noticed by a judge who ordered his DNA to be tested and cross-referenced with the DNA from the rape kit. So in January of 2008, a public defender came to see Johnnie while he was in custody, and they took a sample. The public defender took a sample of Johnnie's DNA. There's actually a really great video of the attorney going into the secure area where Johnnie is, in Johnnie's prison uniform, and he's cuffed up and taking a DNA swab, an oral swab from his mouth. And what's great about that video is, Johnnie already knows, the attorney already knows that Johnnie is innocent, and that's an important part of them proving it. So by September of that year, of 2008, the DNA collection took place in January of 2008, and by September of 2008, it had been determined by the courts that Johnnie's DNA was not the DNA from that rape kit. By the end of the month, Johnnie had been ordered released from prison by a judge, by a Texas state judge. And by April of the next year, I believe April 24th, 2009, Johnnie received a full pardon from the governor of the state of Texas. It was Rick Perry at that time. Rick Perry gave Johnnie a full pardon on April 24th, 2009. And as I learned in this class, the state of Texas is the most generous state in the union as far as compensating their exonerees. And Johnnie received over $1 million worth of compensation, and it was paid out to him in annuity payments, monthly annuity payments of $11,300. So after Johnnie was released in 2008, he started to receive these monthly checks of $11,300, which is significant. He was a wealthy man after he was released. Johnnie enjoyed playing music. He played the keyboard and he sang. And as I learned through my research about Johnnie, he says that he honed those talents, his musical talents, during his incarceration. And he used to sit in a cell and sing. Unfortunately, though, toward the end of Johnnie's life, he developed liver cancer. He became very ill, very ill. I believe his battle with cancer was hard on his finances. It drained a lot of his money, and unfortunately, in 2018, he passed away from liver cancer. And one of Johnnie's greatest concerns toward the end of his life was not that he had been wrongfully convicted. It was not that he had spent 26 years in prison, but rather it was that he did not sign some specific piece of insurance paperwork that would have allowed his monthly annuity to continue to be paid out to his wife after his passing. So once he passed away, the compensation money from the state stopped, and his wife was not able to receive any. And that was actually one of Johnnie's last most significant concerns, which I say is a far better concern than having to worry about life imprisonment. So this is the real story of Johnnie Lindsey, an African-American man, a Texas man who had been wrongfully convicted of aggravated sexual assault and sentenced to life imprisonment, and served 26 years of that life sentence before he was released. That's Johnnie Lindsey. Thank you.